Today I want to talk about brain rejuvenation and what triggered this call, because a lot of mine have been about, talking about brain function and things. And I've just been on the phone a lot this week with people that take my product Tianqi and realizing that hardly anybody knows what it's exactly about. And that was not only surprising to me, but a little bit disheartening, because the product is really what I'm about. And so if I'm not getting the message out there about what I actually do and why I actually have an herb company, then I'm kind of failing at what I do. And it's fascinating to me, because I've been on this path for about 10 years, and still a lot of the people that I talk to on a regular basis that take some of my products, that come to me for advice, don't know exactly what drives me and what my product is all about. So I'm going to talk about it today, because I think it's a topic that's not just important for a few people, but it's something you need to understand. Whether you ever take that product or not, you need to understand what it's about and what I'm about. And basically it's all kind of wrapped up together in this product we call Tianqi. About 10 years ago, I had left my herbal practice in Los Angeles. It was probably around 11, 12 years ago. But about 10 years ago, I made a commitment to do what I'm doing now. But when I left my normal, what I call everyday job of working in an herb shop and helping people on a daily basis, I wanted to make a bigger impact. I wanted to pick something that I thought could help just about anybody in the world with their health problems. And that was the beginning of me coming up with Tianqi. And Tianqi will always be the product that my company revolves around. And the reason for that, and why I decided to make that particular thing, is that it deals, one, with stress, right? And stress is a topic that everybody knows just a little bit about, but never really fully understands. You don't realize, unless you're someone like me who does a lot of research and looks into health in a very deep manner, how stress affects every single function in your body, but especially your thoughts, and how it changes your life on a moment-to-moment basis. And so to have something that changes that for people, that gives them some sort of instant way of seeing life differently, is literally life-changing. And that's why I always talked about Tianqi as being transformative and life-changing, because it is, because you can see things differently. And once you see things differently and realize that the world around you is mostly created by your thoughts, and by that I don't mean the physical things that you see and all these different aspects. I'm talking about your reactions to life and your reactions to the people around you, and how you perceive them reacting to you is based on your own state of energy. And for most people, their state of energy is usually off in some manner, and it's due to a lot of things, but the main things which I address in this product are stress and a lack of nutrition. And most people, when you talk about a lack of nutrition, they really feel like, well, I eat well, I do all these things well. That's great, because I do that myself. But the reality is, it doesn't matter how well you eat, you're lacking in something that your brain actually needs. And that's because of the quality of the food, the type of the food. You might not be eating the exact qualities of different things, or foods that have certain nutrients. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan or on some other restricted diet, you're more than likely not getting certain nutrients for your brain, especially if you're on some sort of medication for lowering your cholesterol. Right there is a big flag for brain activity, because you're going to be interfering with the way that your brain works, and you're going to be probably put on a diet that takes one of the main nutrients that your brain needs completely out of it. And so you have to make up for these things, and you have to deal with all these things on a daily basis, or you're going to end up with memory issues and other problems related to stress and brain energy. I mean, the latest research, you've heard me talk before about this great book came out called The End of Alzheimer's. And basically he talked about something that I've been talking about for a decade, is that a lot of brain issues are related to suboptimal nutrition. And so how that kicks off a state of inflammation in your brain, and how just the lack of those particular things over a long period of time cause processes in your brain to kick in that cause you to start getting rid of neurons, destroying your own brain, basically. And you can stop a lot of that and prevent a lot of these issues with your memory by taking certain nutrients in your diet and having them there on a daily basis. You know, just one simple little nutrient like folic acid, and you get it in the right form, which is methylfolate. They say that if you're deficient in methylfolate, that your brain can atrophy in 7 different places. Now think about that, atrophy, meaning it goes dead, you know, over a period of time. When you look at how many people are probably deficient in that, and how many people have no clue to that, and then they're having memory issues, they're having behavioral issues, they're having all these types of things going on. Maybe they're taking antidepressants, maybe they're doing mood stabilizers, maybe they're doing all these different types of medication trying to get normal when they've never actually went and had a nutritional assessment and figured out what's going on with their brain. So you have to be able to look at these things in a more open-minded way and not fall into this pattern of just thinking that medicine is the thing that's going to help you. And believe me, I'm not against Western medicine. I think it's incredible, but it is an emergency system of medicine. If you have an emergency, it's great. If you want to take care of yourself, it's really not much you want to get involved with. You have to be able to do this stuff on your own, figure it out on your own. And there's been an explosion of information about how you can actually do that. But, you know, I started it 10 years ago when I wanted to make this product. And I wanted to make something that not only dealt with stress, but also looked at premature aging of the brain. Now, maybe you haven't heard that term, which is premature aging of the brain, but it basically means developing behavioral and memory issues long before your time. Let's say you're starting to experience some lapses in memory in your 50s or in your early 60s, things that just aren't considered to be the norm, and you're worried about that going into a deeper pattern. Well, most of those things have been building up in you for 20 to 30 years. I often tell people that your nutritional deficiency that you started in your 30s is what's showing up in your brain today in your 50s and your 60s. And so you have to start paying attention to that. There's nothing, in my opinion, that you can do for your own health that's more important than dealing with stress and dealing with the amount of nutrients that your brain needs on a daily basis to be healthy. Because it doesn't really matter what happens to you. We all hate arthritis. It's great that it's terrible to have, knees that hurt all the time. But it's much worse if your brain is leaving you and you don't have access to it and access to your memory. So all these things should probably be at the top of your list. And again, this is why I made Tianqi. When you look at all the research, it doesn't matter who's doing it, they all mention this one basic fact. That is that if you're too stressed out, you have elevated stress hormone, that causes a type of inflammation in your brain which attacks your hippocampus. Your hippocampus is this little part of your brain that's considered the center of memory. It's responsible for laying down memory and accessing memory. And so when you have excessive stress hormone, then basically that part of your brain starts to soak up not only the stress hormone, but it actually starts to soak up other toxins in your that make it up into your brain at a much higher rate. So it starts to shrink. And then when you add other things into the process, like high homocysteine levels, or things like other types of inflammatory chemicals, then you're causing this memory center to just shrivel up and shrink. And long term, that for a lot of people that don't know what they're doing or how to actually correct that, it can be something that's irreversible for most people because they just don't have access to the information about what to do. And stress is a huge part of all of this. And what amazes me about everyone that writes about stress and everybody that deals with it is that no one has an answer for what to do for stress. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I made it my life mission, was that no one seems to be able to have not only the experience with the herbs to do that, but the faith that something like that's going to work. But all the research is out there. When you take something like Tianqi or Inner Peace, it has herbs in it that have been scientifically proven to lower stress hormone. They open up your brain in a way that allows you to see things differently and have different reactions to your stress. And so this is really just as important as lowering stress hormone. I mean, why would you take a chemical just because it lowered stress hormone if it did nothing else to your brain? You're still stuck in patterns of behavior because of where your brain is actually residing. What you want to do is change the energetics of your brain. Tianqi has an herbal formula that's not only designed and with ingredients that are proven to lower stress hormone, but it goes beyond that. It has the ability to change the energetics of your brain and promote something called brain coherence. Now, you might not have ever heard about that, but brain coherence is really this just ability for your brain, all parts of your brain, to be communicating with each other at all times. Now, you might find that this is a strange concept, but it's not actually. If you really think about the stress response, most people spend the vast majority of their day locked into fight or flight. They might just be slightly into it, or they might be full on into flight or fight and flight because they're just stressed out at work. They can't move off of this feeling that everybody's against them, or things are going badly, or they're having a bad day, or they're stressed out. And what happens in your brain when that is going on is that your brain shifts its energy down into the stress response. Your amygdala, which is kind of the sentry for your brain, is just telling you that you're in danger all day long. And so your brain resides down in that fight or flight. So how do you look at your world? How do you look at every single thing that happens to you that day? You look at it as being a challenge or being something you have to survive. And that is where you're going to stay for the rest of the day. And if you're locked into that for a month, you're going to be locked into that all day long, and you're not even going to be able to let it go when you go to sleep. And this is why you don't sleep deep, why you don't wake up feeling rejuvenated. All these things are because your brain is shifted down into this stress response, and it won't let go. You've lost the feedback loop from your body that turns it off and sets you off on a path of rejuvenation and changing your entire system. So you have to be able to change that, because what you want to do is shift up into the frontal lobe of your brain and activate that part of your brain where everything's an experience, everything's in a more positive light. It's more about creativity and fun and being able to see the bigger picture. And when you can reside in your brain up in that area of your brain more often, then you're creating coherence because you're not shutting off access to anything else. Just when you hear about stress response, think about it this way. A stress response is your own body's and brain shutting off a lot of its normal function so that it can concentrate on one thing, and that's fighting or fleeing. This is where fight and flight comes from. You're either going to run away or you're going to fight the challenge that's in front of you. And so in that process, it shuts everything else off. And I'm talking about every cell in your body now has shut off its ability to rebuild and regenerate. Because in the state of a stress response, you cannot build or fix anything. You can only respond to the danger that's in front of you. Now that's true no matter if it's a small bit of a stress response or if it's a large stress response. You're locked into this inability to fix anything or to even take nutrients into parts of your body. So you have to make that shift. You have to make a shift energetically in your brain to be able to move up to the frontal lobe of your brain and see the possibilities. And when you're up there, then it's harder to have a full-on stress response. But if you're taking herbs every day, like for example, Tianchi or Inner Peace, and you have a major stressor, it's not a bad thing because your body now has the ability to move in and out of stress. And this is how you want to be. Taking products for stress doesn't mean that you're never going to get stressed. You're never going to be stressed out or even get angry or have anything else go on. What it means is you're going to have a normal, healthy stress response. You're going to be able to be stressed and then drop it and move on, right? And then your body just goes through this process, turning on the stress response, and as soon as it's over, you move back out of it, and your body floods your system with these other hormones that brings you back into balance, and your body starts rebuilding itself. This is the phase that almost everybody misses, is where you go into a phase of rebuilding yourself. This is the part that is so important to your health, that you signal your body that the danger is over and you go back to normalizing your internal condition. This is what Tianchi is about. Tianchi is just not about taking herbs that lower stress hormone. It actually has things that open your brain up energetically to receive light and to receive energy. You've heard all these talks about how your brain is really not just something used for thinking and figuring out problems. It's more of a transmitter. It not only transmits energy, but receives energy. And that's basically true. So the parts of your brain that actually receive and send out energy are in your frontal lobe in the top of your head and in the back of your head. They're energy centers that correspond with glands. And when they're open, which is normal in a person who's not locked in a stress response, then those energy centers help to balance your brain or bring about a state of coherence. This is why people often say, well, you have to meditate. You know, meditation is great for stress. Meditation is great for relaxing you. Well, the great thing about meditation is that you're putting yourself in an energetic position to balance your brain and bring about coherence. Tianchi is actually formulated to put your brain in a similar energetic state as sitting down to meditate. It's one of the secrets about how it works, because you can use herbs to influence these same centers, and all those herbs, if you pick the right ones, will influence your glandular system, will influence your stress hormone, will rebuild your adrenals and build your system up and put it in an energetic position to have a different experience. And that's what, again, why it's formulated that way. Now, knowing that you can influence the brain and lower stress hormone with certain herbs, that was the basis of starting out to make Tianchi. And then if you notice, if you're on the product or you might be new to it and looking it up on the website, the other half of that is a blend of nutrients. And why did I pick those particular nutrients? Because most of them are essential to everyday brain function. They play a role in what I feel is the most important things that you can do on a daily basis. Now, there might be other things that you find that are, specific for your imbalance that you might have in brain energy, but the reality is everybody needs these particular nutrients to have a healthy brain, and unless you're getting them somewhere, your brain and your memory and your focus and even your mood is going to suffer long term. And this is how Tian Chia has actually evolved. If you've been someone that's following my company for the last 10 years, it's evolved. It seems like almost every year or two I've improved it in some way. And why did I make those improvements? Well, none of them really had to do that much with the herb portion of it, because that was a stroke of genius on my part, so to speak, that it doesn't really need much improvement. But where it was improved was how the latest research showed me that if I really wanted to stick to my commitment to help people with their brain and premature aging of the brain, I had to give them the best quality of certain nutrients that made the most impact on a wide host of things going on in their brain. This is why, if you noticed in the last year, I've added methylfolate. You know, methylfolate is a form of folic acid that your brain needs, and I mentioned earlier, or it's going to atrophy in certain parts. It's involved with every chemical process in your brain, and if you don't have it, you're going to suffer. And if you don't have it, then there's going to be a signaling go on somewhere in your brain that tells it at certain points that it might need to get rid of certain neurons, and you start to lose function in your brain. Why did I pick methylfolate? Well, you know, because most people in the world, not just the United States, have a type of genetic variance that doesn't allow them to fully utilize folic acid. And so when you use methylfolate, that's the type of folic acid that your body and brain can actually use, that actually goes into your nervous system and makes a difference. You know, neurons are part of your nervous system, and methylfolate is the type that everybody can use. And so when you look at the fact that most people cannot utilize normal folic acid, or what they call folate that's on a label, there's really no reason to actually use that type in any product that you make. If half the people that you gave it to can't use it, what's the point of actually putting it in a product? And that's the way I felt with that. You know, methylfolate is a very, very expensive ingredient compared to folic acid, and that's probably the reason why you don't see it in most things. But the reality is, it's the one that you have to have if you want to have proper brain function. Same way with methylcobalamin. You can buy much cheaper things that are all synthetic, but your nervous system in your brain will not utilize it. Almost anybody over the age of 40, maybe 50 years old, has a problem or a deficiency in vitamin B12. It's one of those things that dependent on a certain type of process going on in your digestion to be able to even absorb it. So if it's not in its right form and your body is having to convert it, you're probably not going to use it once you get a little bit older. And so again, almost everybody in this country, if you follow statistics for health, it's just a known fact that human beings start to lose their digestive energy around 50, and they have trouble absorbing things. So why would you put a cheaper form of that in a product if you really were committed to changing and helping people with their brain function? Well, you wouldn't, actually. So methylcobalamin got added to my drink. You notice that my drink always has a form of choline in it. And choline is a typical nutrient that most people could get in their diets if they're eating certain types of food. But the reality is, about 30 years ago, when statin drugs became famous for heart disease, basically people were told not to eat eggs, not to eat most of the foods that actually have choline in them. And so right now the latest statistics show that 70% of the population is deficient in choline. And so, you know, that is something that you actually need to make acetylcholine, which is the main neurotransmitter involved in, again, the speed by which your brain works, laying down and accessing memories. It's the one that they say is deficient in everybody with Alzheimer's. So you have to have something in your diet that makes sure you have the minimum ability to make that neurotransmitter. And it also is involved in actually the health the myelin sheath of your nerves. It's involved in a lot of processes in your body, cleaning your liver, keeping that functioning properly. There's all these different functions that go along with choline, and again, most people are deficient in it. You'd be surprised how many people I talk to that are afraid to eat an egg. You know, I only eat 1 or 2 a week because of my heart. Oh, really? It's one of the biggest mistakes ever done in Western medicine, was to tell people they can't eat eggs and that they need to take drugs to lower their cholesterol. The latest research shows that if you get your cholesterol below 150, which is what modern medicine loves to see you at, it causes brain atrophy. I think I'd rather have a little more cholesterol. So this is the type of things I looked at when I was making Tianqi, and it goes beyond that. I have things like DMG, Dimethyl Glycine, which is an incredible nutrient for not only keeping your pituitary gland healthy, but it generates and consolidates an energy in the frontal lobe of your brain. You seem to be more solid and present when you take dimethyl glycine. It works along with the tyrosine I put in my drink to make dopamine and keep your dopamine levels up in the brain. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter that's responsible for powering up your brain. And so combined with choline, you're taking in one of the best substances for powering up your brain and also affecting the speed by which your brain processes information. If you're getting a little older, let's say you're over 50 and you're at work and you're having trouble processing information, or maybe to put it a better way, you're just having trouble keeping up, there's nothing probably wrong with you. Your brain is missing certain nutrients that allow it to work with the speed that it needs to be at to handle your job. It's not that you're getting older, it's that you're missing nutrients. And there's an easy way to correct it, is go out and just get some nutrients and start working on your brain. Again, this is why I put all of these things in Tianqi. I wanted to have something that people could take to deal with their stress, to give them some energy at work, to put their brain in a position to have success. To put it in, I don't want you to go out and go to work and to fail. Wow, are we back live? I wanted you to be able to keep up with life and to function. And so, again, that's what Tianqi is about. But, you know, reality is why I say it's a transformational product is because this whole idea of brain rejuvenation, this ability for you to actually take something that starts to make an impact on your brain function right away, it can have an immediate effect to where you actually see that a lot of your issues in life and a lot of your issues at work or in general are just related to how you were feeling. You don't know how many people go through life thinking there's something just wrong with them, or they've been trained through medicine to think there's something just wrong with them and they'll never be able to fix it. And the reality is they're just worn out and they just don't have enough nutrients. And basically that's what Tianqi can do. And for those people, and I get these calls all the time, my whole life has changed. They took one pack. My life has completely changed. You know, and these are people that are worn out, tired, stressed out, don't have a place to turn, and they take a product like this and they see everything differently. Life is easier that day. They have energy. They can figure out exactly what they need to work on and what they need to focus on. And a lot of our clients call us up and cry about it because they just have never felt like that before, and they thought their situation was hopeless. But what is the real basis of what's going on there? It's really just goes back to rejuvenation, brain rejuvenation, removing inflammation, supplying nutrients, getting rid of stress. That's a combination that can help anyone. And this is why the product is so successful and why people feel so good when they take it. It's not some magical thing that, you know, although I think the herbal formula is pretty magical and I put it together. But the reality is that it's a formula that works for just about anybody. Everybody's too stressed. They have too much inflammation. They're lacking in nutrients. You can make a difference in that with just one thing, which is Tianqi. And so this is why I do it. This is why I've dedicated my life to this formula and the other things I've brought out now to round out my herbal program. But the reality is Tianqi will always be the flagship of my company, HerbWorks. It'll always be the product that we refer people to at least try so that they can have the experience of life in a way when they're upbeat, when they have energy, and when their brain is focused and taken out of the stress response. And this, for some people, can be a life-changing experience the very first time they actually do it. And so this is why I make Tianqi. This is why it's actually on the market, and why I will always continue to make it, because it's my way of getting out in the world and helping people, which is really what an herbalist is meant to do. And what I was meant to do is just to help people. And so that's my way of getting out and helping the most people that I possibly can with a wide variety of issues that go on. You wouldn't believe how many of your health issues could be cleared up by just taking one simple formula that shuts off the stress response and actually gives your brain the nutrients it needs to become clear and to focus and to function on a daily basis. So I'm going to see if I have any questions here. Greetings from London. All right, somebody in London is listening. Getting my greens in. I don't see a question. You know, I want to put out a little comment now to everybody that's listening. When you come on and start to watch, if you could type in some questions that I can answer while we're doing it, and that would give me the ability to actually learn how to do this and answer some of them on the conference when we're doing it. So looks like I don't have any questions. I'm going to wrap it up here today. I just wanted to kind of summarize the fact that I felt I needed to talk about Tianqi, because it's really about who I am and not about just making something to sell on my site. It's about my attempt to get out in the universe and to change people's lives and to make a difference. And if you haven't tried it yet, give it a little try. Go to herbworks.com and give me some feedback and tell me what you think.